So, on this most recent episode of Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., we've got a lot going on. We've got the mention of old stuff that we knew from previous seasons, and then there's all the new stuff that's gotten introduced this season so far. Pachacuti, the Monoliths, the Crystals, the Shrikes, and of course let's not forget about the Creator. Those were the biggest of them all. There is also the fact that we do get flashbacks of Coulson and May in Tahiti, like Coulson's final days. Was he dead by the end of these flashbacks? We don't know. Was he just asleep? We don't know either. They may put something in his drink, trying to ease his suffering, ease his pain, let him go easily. That's a possibility as well. There are a lot of things that we can talk about, a lot of things that we can theorize on, but first and foremost, welcome back guys to another one of my Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. videos and my review of the 5th episode of the 6th season, otherwise titled The Other Thing. Now to get started, The Other Thing is probably a reference to Tahiti, you know, the other thing, the elephant in the room, the thing that we've got no clue about and we want to know more about. That's the greatest possibility I could think of over here. But the other thing could also be a reference to the Kree monolith, you know, the thing that created all this to start with, brought us to this point, you know, time travel and whatnot. But as far as episodes go, I think this one deserves a 9 out of 10 on a scale of 10, where 10 is basically my favorite episode of the series. Not comparing it to other series, not comparing it to movies, just comparing it to other S.H.I.E.L.D. episodes. And my favorite S.H.I.E.L.D. episode, by the way, would be All the Madam's Men out of Season 4, that was episode 19. So yeah, that was my 10 when it comes to Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. Now the only reason I do give this episode a 9 out of 10 is that I did prefer the other structure, the structure of episodes 2, 3, and 4. Like I didn't like the spread of the story on this episode, you know, going back and forth between the Earth team and the Space team. I'd rather have the Earth team episodes and the Space team episodes. But then again, all of this was for good reason, and I did state that on both my synopsis breakdown for this episode and on my trailer breakdown for the same episode. The reason here, and as expected, is that a reunion was in the works, and by the end of the episode we've got Mac and Yo-Yo reuniting with Daisy, Piper, and Daviiz, while Jemma is gonna be reuniting with Fitz on next week's episode, even though in a very awkward kind of situation. Gonna talk about that on my trailer breakdown. Okay, so let's get started by speaking about the flashbacks here. Now the flashbacks were really cool, loved seeing Coulson once again, loved seeing the little statements that he makes that are pretty similar to the ones that Sarge makes. You've got the tick of the clock is only getting louder, you've got every dream is someone else's nightmare, you've got a lot in common between Sarge and Coulson, but you've also got the question that May asked Sarge, like how far back do you remember? A week, a month, a year? And while the moment that the question was asked, we were like waiting for an answer that would give us a hint, is this guy Coulson, is he not Coulson? His answer is not really satisfying, at least to me it wasn't really satisfying. Okay, so he does tell her that he's been living 100 years, he's been doing this since way before she was born. However though, for some reason, he talks about a number of years that he believes his age is. He never talks about how much does he remember. He talks about being on planets that moved at the speed of light, which kind of makes me wonder, hey, is he talking about planets that actually moved at the speed of light, like part of his memory, or is it all a hint that he does feel that his memories are kind of a bit rushed? I mean, when you think about it, both are possibilities. The man never gave an answer that's actually satisfying, that's actually full-on straight. Yeah, I do remember that far back. But hey though, that was May's attempt at trying to figure out who this guy was. Is he her Coulson? Is he not her Coulson? I mean, a lot of similarities, a lot of things ringing a bell for her. So yeah, that was her first step before deciding, hey, I'm gonna kick the shit out of this guy, take him prisoner, and take him back to base. Now before I move on fully to Sarge and May and ignore Coulson completely, Coulson did believe the S.H.I.E.L.D. Academy has gotta be revived, did want it to be revived. So May and Mac, working for it, wanting it to happen, that was all about fulfilling a Coulson dream, that was all about Coulson's memory. But as I mentioned though on my trailer breakdown for this episode, Sarge did want May to join him. He was trying to recruit her, put her through her initiation, you know, by putting her in that room with that guy, the infected guy, the Shrike, in order to make sure that she sees it for herself, that she does believe him when he tells her, I'm fighting these guys, the knife to the chest right under the ribcage, that's not me trying to kill people, that's me trying to stop these parasites. The parasites, or the Shrikes, are explained by Sarge as parasitic beings that have been invading universes for so long that their leader, the Creator, is on his way, and that once he makes it, Pachacuti is going to be coming, the death of everything. Now at the end of the episode, we get an idea about what Pachacuti is, and Pachacuti is basically an Incan word, as indicated by Marcus Benson. Now looking it up in that context, you do find Pachacuti Inca Yupanqui, and that's basically the name of an Inca emperor, but the name Pachacuti itself does mean a person who overturns space and time. So yeah, that's pretty connected to what's going on over here, because we've got the monoliths. The monoliths were made of the same material that the crystals are made of. The black monolith was the space monolith, the white monolith was the time monolith, and the third monolith, the one that was never identified, seems to be more of a reality monolith, because we did get a mix of the three, and the mix of the three gave us some kind of warped reality, a nightmare realm, a dream realm. So this is kind of very fitting. Pachacuti is coming, someone who can overturn space and time, someone who's coming because of the messing with the space and time, and someone who's coming to probably destroy this timeline completely. On another note though, as far as names go, the creator doesn't ring a bell out of the comics. If it does ring a bell for you, let me know in the comments down below. But in all cases though, and before I move on, and until my theory video, let me give you some food for thought. We've got the Kree monolith, we've got parasitic creatures that kind of remind us of Hive. We've got the Inhumans. The Inhumans were created via experiments by the Kree, and the crystals here, even though not the same, kind of reminds us of the Terrigenesis crystals. Now I'm saying this because I also want to remind you that during WonderCon back in April, or I think it was late March, I think it was either Jed Whedon or Jeff Bell that mentioned that it is possible that they just throw words in the middle of a story just to see the fans' reactions. Now back then it did sound like a joke, but what if they're planning to throw in Hive, like whatever they did in order to change the future, kind of changed something, brought Hive back to life or brought him back to power, because we do know that we're not really sure that Hive really died in space. I mean, the guy's a parasite, capable of moving from one body to the other. We've seen that before, and we might be seeing it again, pretty soon as well. Now, one of the highlights of this episode, one of the things I liked about this episode were the jokes at the expense of Deke. You've got Agent Trevor Khan making a joke at his expense at the very beginning of the episode, about him being quiet and all. And then there was the second one with May, Sarge asking her what he is, what Deke is, and then you've got her responding, he's exhausting. Now you've also got the bit with Mac and Yo-Yo, staring at one another at the beginning of the episode, the conversation that goes on between them, which makes it all sound like Keller was just a plot device. His dying was all about opening room for these two to be back together. They're not back yet, but yeah though, the arc with Yo-Yo and Keller was pretty much about the forbidden fruit, a filler arc nonetheless, even though his death is going to be a huge motivator for the team, and for Yo-Yo especially. But there's also the part about Yo-Yo talking about having to make hard choices, or having had to make hard choices before, and how being right does not stop them from feeling wrong. And that is all about a reference to Season 5, Yo-Yo seemingly wanting Coulson to die, when the truth is she rather wanted Coulson to live, but she was in kind of a dilemma after she heard her older self tell her that the only way to save the planet, to make sure that the Earth does not get shattered, is to let Coulson die. Now once again though, the ley lines keep getting mentioned, kind of makes you think of the two arcs out of the comics that I've talked about before. The first one is the Dark Angel arc, and along with Hillbilly on Discord, we've built an entire theory that I presented on a video last week, basically all about the crystals, because the crystals are part of that arc. Not these crystals exactly, but there are crystals over there. There is space travel, there's a spaceship, there's a cloaking mechanism, there's a demon, and there are parasitic creatures. So yeah, we kinda got something out of that one. The other arc is of course the Edwin Cord and Cordco arc, and these people are basically all about being the Raiders, even though right now, given the story and how it's going, Coulson not creating these things, but rather trying to kill them, that kind of drives us away from the, Raiders arc or anything related to that. Now I think that May was starting to be trusting of Sarge a little bit, trusting of Sarge, but then Sarge starts talking about burning it all down, and I'm thinking over here that he's talking about the planet. Hey, I'm gonna burn down this planet in order to stop these parasites. Now even though the methodology is kind of out there, kind of a little bit crazy, you're gonna destroy life on Earth in order to stop these parasites, the guy kind of has a point. Not that I agree with it, but he does have a point. The guy's talking about the Shrikes jumping from host to host whenever you kill their original host, which means that everyone is in danger, which means that it is necessarily a matter of time before they take over everyone, before they keep moving on and bring more of their kind in order to take over the population of our planet. But yeah though, that's not how it's going to go down in the end, and Sarge is not going to be allowed to achieve what he wants to achieve, burn it all down. That though is what triggers May to realizing she cannot work with that guy. I mean, Sarge is the lesser of two evils, but that doesn't make him a good guy. He's still one of the two evils. But in all cases, I loved how May played Snowflake, loved the conversation between the two of them, and really admired the scene where she gives Sarge an ass kicking, because in the end, and you could see it, it all boils down to the fact that she was kinda hesitant. Every time she was taking a punch, she was a little bit hesitant. This guy is wearing the face of Coulson. And it might seem that she's overcome this at this point, but thinking about the season trailer, I do think that she hasn't. I do think that this is going to play a role on future episodes. Last but not least though, we've got the Zephyr one requesting permission to land, we've got Yo-Yo and Mac having a moment before Daisy, Piper, and Daviiz walk out of the Zephyr, we've got the use of the original soundtrack on that scene of the reunion, loved it, we've got two groups asking unanswered questions, well unanswered from their perspective. Who is he? You know, the guy they caught, that's the question that Daisy asks, and she's gonna be in for a big shock when it comes to Sarge. And then there is the other question, the question that Mac asks, where's Fitz and Simmons? And that's all about the events of next week's episode. I'm expecting a reunion by the end of episode 7 or the beginning of episode 8 when it comes to Fitz and Simmons and the rest of the team. But jumping though to the final arc on this episode, and it's all about the space team. So this first thing over here I've mentioned before in so many videos, but all Chronicons have got biblical names. You've got Noah, you've got Enoch, you've got Altara, and you've got Malachi. I don't know if this is going to come into play at some point, but nonetheless though, I think it's worth noting and worth remembering. Now I gotta say, I do love Depressed Enoch, he's so funny that way. You know, first with the depression on episode 3, talking about the stink of the name Enoch, and then his depression over here, talking about loss being decommissioned and the lack of hope. Now Daisy and Jemma do explain to Enoch what happened when he sent them to the future, which is a total callback to the events of season 5. Not too long after the episode starts, we've got the Confederacy ships surrounding the Zephyr one. We end up realizing that the ship that broke Enoch's ship in half on the premiere of this season was a Confederacy ship. That's basically what prompts Enoch that these people do not want to kill them. So yeah, as expected, this ship is a Confederacy ship. The people on it though are Chronicons. I was way off on the Chronicons, or this faction of the Chronicons being the 6th Confederacy race, but nonetheless we do realize that what happened with them is exactly what happened with Earth on season 5. So Daisy defeats Graviton, the Earth is saved by the end of season 5, a new timeline is created, but instead of Earth being the one invaded by the Confederacy, instead of Earth being the one that is destroyed in the first place, the parasites, the Shrikes, invade Chronica 2, which is basically the home planet to the Chronicons. Now Altara over here does give us the full story, minor distortions in the fabric of space that would release a plague. The plague are the Shrikes, by the way. The Chronicons being the race that does not want to interfere or does not like interfering do debate a lot. You know, are we gonna face this, are we not gonna face this? And they seem to have decided too late whether they should or shouldn't stop this plague. Now by the time their entire planet has been destroyed, the Confederacy decides to walk in, just like they did on 508. Probably as well doing the same, coming in as saviors when their main intention is to enslave everyone. Now the only difference over here from 508 is that the Chronicons managed to overpower them, managed to get their ships, and managed to escape with what remained of their race. And right now their objective is to figure out how our team did it, how they went back in time or went forward in time and ended up saving their planet because they wanted to do the same for Chronica 2. Now, out of the many references to previous seasons and callbacks to previous seasons, Altara is unknown in response to Jemma's question about the cause of the distortions did parallel Enoch's responses to all the questions of both Fitz and Hunter in the elevator of the lighthouse close to the end of episode 5 of season 5. Now, Jemma over here is not really lying when she tells Altara that she doesn't know how they did it, how they traveled in time, because one minute they were in a room with the monolith, the next thing they were exactly in the place they need to be like 74 years later, and they did make it back like 74 years before when they try to come back. But the one thing though that Jemma is missing over here when she tells her that there was a machine, and there was a machine in the future by the way, is that there is no monolith anymore. Even that small piece of the monolith that they used in the future, that's no more there. They destroyed it at the end of season 5. They pretty much took a hammer to the thing. They didn't want it anymore. They didn't want it to exist. A bad experience, so let us just ruin any trace of that experience. But yeah though, Enoch ends up giving Altara the key. You know, the only way to have Fitz working on this is to use Jemma, because Jemma in danger is the biggest motivator when it comes to Leopold Fitz, and I did talk about that a week ago. We finally get the scene with Daisy and Jemma, you know, Jemma staying behind or deciding to stay behind, and Daisy leaving, going back to Earth, the parting moment. So yeah, we're in for a Fitz-Simmons-centric episode next week, and there's one final thing I want to talk about over here, which is all the bickering with Piper and Daviiz, and I'm really loving every moment with these two. They're the comedic duo of this season, so look out, Deke, because you have got competition.
Yeah, and my buddy here is nursing a wicked hangover. I mean, could we at least get some water or something? He gets cranky!
Cranky?
I was being nice. You're a whiny bitch.
But that having been said though, my work here is done, so let me know in the comments down below what you thought of this episode. Let me know if there are any Easter eggs and references that I missed. I think most of the references that I mentioned over here, and any other ones that I did notice on the episode, were basically all about Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., like previous seasons of the series. Let me know as well if you did like this video by dropping it a much appreciated like, subscribing to this channel, and make sure while you're at it to enable notifications in order to get updates whenever I upload a new video, publish a new community post, or start a new live stream. But until the next time that you tune in for another one of my videos, Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D. or otherwise, thank you so much for tuning in to this review, and have a great day.